All right, I think we can slowly start. So please welcome on stage Jakub Zitny.
Hey, so I will be talking about our migration journey, about the Yarn, about NPM, about the Yarn PNP mechanism, so on and so on. Maybe I can wait like 20 seconds till everyone takes their place, and I have a thing for that. So, you know, all these presentations that have GIFs there, and you laugh, and it's memes, and it's fun. So I wanted to do a presentation like that, but then I found out that that it's funny and I don't know how to do it properly. But then I googled npm memes, and I found some cool things. So like this is one of them. Wait, this is how I can show it. Wait, like this. Okay. So this is one of them. This is another one of them, which is also one of the reasons that I will talk about why we migrated to Yarn. Well, this is a classic one. You can add one more here and say your mom, but this is not appropriate to say. And this one, So, okay, meme part checked out. Let's start. Hi, I am Jakub, and I'm from Deepnote. And what we do is we work in data space, and we have a notebook that data analysts, data scientists, and data engineers can use for their Python explorations and whatever they want to do. And besides that, so I'm a software engineer, but besides that, I also do my PhD in deep learning at CTU here, and I work with medical data and deep learning and explainability, which is not going well because obviously I work for Deepnote. But yeah, so, and like 6, 7, 8 months ago, we started migrating our Yarn 1 to Yarn 2, and this was quite a painful process. So we thought that we would share the learnings and share the pains. I just want to say that I was not the one who did most of the work. It was our CTO, but he couldn't be here, so I'm taking the fame here. And also, so recently, I think in August, Yarn 3 went public, and this is also not as easy as it looks like to migrate there. So, okay, mandatory slide about Deepnote. It's a collaborating notebook for data people. If you are interested, we can talk about this after the talk. It's a very nice tool for all the data people, as I said, and we are about to raise Series A and we are hiring, so exciting times. Okay, so what's Yarn? Before I say what's Yarn, what's NPM? Who doesn't know what NPM is? Thank you. Who doesn't know what Yarn is? Perfect. So, okay, NPM was started in like 2010, and JavaScript was very, very young. Well, JavaScript was not young; it was 14 years old, which is still teenage years. And you can imagine what happens when you're 14 years old and want to be famous all over the world, and present in all the browsers. It will rise into your head, and you will do crazy things. And then Backbone happened, and Ember happened, and then React came. But in parallel, people started doing server side in JavaScript, and all of this little group of JavaScript developers was maybe shortly one of the largest groups in software engineering, and problems started to arise. So Yarn was authored by Facebook engineers in 2016 as a response to some problems with Yarn, let's say. Then in 2020, Yarn had problems by itself. So there was a radical new version of Yarn 2, and it helped us to speed up some things. And now we are 2021. In August, Yarn 3 was born, and recently also NPM 7 was born. So why Yarn? Now I don't have the memes, so you have to read stuff. So NPM was a good thing It was one of the first package managers for JavaScript, and it was bundled with Node. So when you install Node, then you also get NPM. So obviously everyone started using it, even though before Bower was kind of popular back then, but it didn't work on server side. And when you had large JavaScript repository for frontend or frontend and backend, you had crazy performance problems because all the resolution was taking a while. And when you import 20 libraries in JavaScript, then you have 400 libraries in your whole dependency tree, which is still the better version. You can have like 2,000 and 5,000, which is what we had in previous company called Avocode. And you have like a lack of workspace abstraction, which was not a problem back then, but companies like Facebook and Google, they did monorepo before it was cool for obvious reasons, because they were large and they wanted to deploy in one batch and so on and so on. But NPM didn't have the workspace abstract. You would have to use Lerna, but then it was not supported by the Yarn script. So yeah. And so Facebook engineers, they had also some problems with patching. I will talk about it later. And also, yeah, Facebook engineers thought that there might be some other mechanism to resolve some things and be faster when installing all the libraries. So they started Yarn in 2016, and it was huge. But then they stopped. So it was like a launch, and it was like open source, and you could contribute, and it was fast, and everybody was happy. And then kind of the development on this was closed, and then when we were sending some pull requests, they didn't accept them, and there was like 200 issues. But well, anyway, things tend to get better when there is competition. So all in all, these days Yarn is great, but also NPM is quite good. Okay, this slide was about why Yarn, mainly because NPM had performance problems. Now, after 4 years, Yarn 2 came, and they brought another revolution in a different resolution, or not just resolution, but also different storage of all the modules that you have in your like dependency tree. And it was called PNP, plug and play. And this is the reason why Yarn 2 was so fast. And I will talk about it in a minute. But besides that, Yarn 2 also had better error messages, better patch protocol, and also native support, even better support for Lerna and Yarn workspaces. So what's plug and play? This is maybe the most interesting thing. Okay, so who uses Yarn 1 here? Cool. And Yarn 2 or 3? Okay. And NPM? Anything? Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Participation. Yay. And so Yarn 2 has, NPM people and Yarn 1 people know this concept of node modules, which is this, the meme with the largest and heaviest thing in the universe. And Yarn plug and play is a different thing, where by itself and when requiring and importing the modules, you don't store them on file system. You don't have all the modules installed in like a file system tree that you have to crawl and load the data, and then load the JavaScripts, and then load them to memory, and then serve the functions or whatever. But it's actually bundled in Yarn cache folder, and everything is zipped, compressed, and everything works like, well, it's faster, and everything is loaded at once. It's loaded into memory, and it's in memory zip file system. So whenever this Yarn runtime is loading some module like a require Productboard, you get your function. What was the name of the module? You can open source that. So you import it, and it doesn't go, find it, search for it in the file system, then loads it into the memory, and then resolves it. But it's already in the memory. it's like, zip file system, so it's already like uncompressed when it's in the memory, and then you access it and then you have it directly right away. So the speed up was in the UI, in the IO operations. So when you have like 5,000 modules in node modules, the heaviest thing or the least performant thing is the IO. So loading files, saving, or mostly loading files. But when you have everything in memory, it's like, what, like 500 times faster. So it's compressed and it's already in the memory and that's it. But of course, you can unplug these if you want to develop your own library, if you have Lerna or if you have workspaces, and if you have like extra module in your monorepo that you have to build, you can unplug it and then you can develop it as well. So don't worry about that. And okay, so there are two things about the PNP, the performance and also the reliability. So as I said, you have the zip file system in the memory, and you have so all the IO operations are much faster. But not only that, not only it's already in the memory, you don't have to do IO, but also you don't have to go through each module when installing, but you can also, so there's like a mapping file that, controls what you want to resolve and then points you where you want to resolve it. And this is already, so this is instant. This is like 01, right? You don't have to traverse and find stuff, which was done without the PNP in the Yarn 1. And by the way, you can use PNP in Yarn 1 now, and you can also use Yarn 2 or 3 without PNP, but don't do that. And okay, by the way, Yarn Berry was the codename for Yarn 2. So you can also, so another point is that where you iterate over zip files in the, in your virtual memory, in your memory, you only check checksums and compare that when installing. And if the checksum doesn't match, then you install a new version during the installation time. So you don't have to load the package.json, read package.json version, check that the version is there, and so on and so on. So this is not only performant when loading stuff, but also when installing. In our case, we were doing some tests and like adding a simple package in an existing repository with like thousands of other modules went from 50 seconds to 5 seconds, which is 10 times improvement. So that's the performance part of the PNP. And there is also the reliability part of the PNP, which is also a little bit tricky, as I will say later. But so in Yarn PNP, you have a file where you define exact versions of your resolution, but not like in a log file, not log, but log. But like basically you will say that my library, for example, React Hello Mom, has to resolve to something, but that something is in a direct place in your memory, not somewhere in the file system. So in your own npm or Yarn 1 world, let's say your nested React something library needs React. It looks first for the React in the root of the node modules, then goes a little bit lower, goes a little bit lower. Sometimes it checks if you have peer dependencies, it checks around, but then also goes up and resolves it. But in Yarn PNP, you have to define that this particular thing resolves here. And we also, during our journey, we found that React Date Picker, for example, doesn't even define peer dependencies, which, there are some warnings, then you ignore them, but it works. But if you delete something, it doesn't work. And if it's not React, it might break. So this is another a thing, this is one of the stepping stones, or let's say the main reasons for Yarn PNP, but it's not that, maybe you didn't even have problems with this before. So Storytime, we decided to go for it. Okay, so this was like a theory, and now the real stuff. So our CI install times were like 1 minute. And then you have to run tests, and that was like 5 minutes. And then you have to run Cypress tests, which is like 15 minutes. By the way, so who uses Cypress here? Nice. Who uses something else like Puppeteer or something like that? Okay. So slow CI installs were one of the main reasons that we decided why to go. Why try Yarn 2? It took us minutes in the fresh. So you use Circle CI, and it was like, so there is some caching in Circle CI. You can try it on Docker level, or you can use like a cache thing that you cache between jobs, and then based on some checksum or some string, you use that cache or not. But so first of all, if you use that cache between jobs, it's slow because it's copying stuff to S3 and then copying it back. And they have this very smart Docker layer caching, where if you imagine, so you have your Circle CI job, Circle CI, they have, let's say they have the servers all around the world, and they somehow optimize, and then, all your jobs are sometimes in US, sometimes in San Francisco, whatever, sometimes in Frankfurt. And so they came up with a thing where they cache your Docker layers across all of these places where they can run your stuff. Well, it's not even about the places, but also about the machines that they run the Docker, that run the Docker. But at first, so like half a year ago, this didn't really work. It was like 90% it missed the cache because we were running so many CI jobs that they didn't have time to copy all this cache around, to all the Docker hosts. So, but now it's a little bit better. We use it also for some other, Cypress stuff. But before it was like really, really slow, and we didn't know what to do. So, okay, so this was the reason why we tried. And when we managed to do it, and I will say how well it went. But at the end, we were from 3 minutes to 20 seconds on CI. When there was cache hit, in the worst case, it was 3 minutes to 1 minute, which was still quite good. Even so at the time we had like 10 active developers, let's say 5 to 20 pushes into your Circle CI pipeline a day, times 5 is like 50. It's some time that it saves. So it's quite nice, 9 times. But also we had problems with patch package. Patch package? It's this thing where let's say you find the library and there's a problem, maybe bug, but maybe you just need some custom behavior that they don't support, and you send them a pull request, and then you are very nice, and you are expecting that they will, write back, and then maybe they merge and they release a new version. So this happens like, I do this a lot. I'm not like outgoing person, but on the internet, I feel like this is the right way to do, but it's like 5% of times. Mostly it's ignored. Sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, but write some tests. But then I write tests and it's like, oh, I have to ask this original maintainer. So yeah, so there is the patch package, which is an npm library that you can use to patch other packages, and then you create a diff, and in post install, it changes the library. But now this is built into Yarn 2. That's the other reason why we upgraded. Continuing the story time. So these are the reasons: patch package and speed. And we were expecting it will take like 2 days, but it took like 2 weeks. And not my time, but our CTO time, which is like, so I calculated it was 540 Veterniks of his development time. So, yeah, these are the problems that we encountered. As I said, during the reliability advantage of Yarn 2, you have to do your dependencies implicitly. You have to like link your resolution thing and what you want to resolve. So this mapping. And you can do like a loose mode where you tell to Yarn 2, don't be so strict. I know what I'm doing and resolve what I will tell you, right? So you just generate some stuff and then, Yarn is shouting a little bit less. But in our case, this shouting a little bit less was still like 150 warnings. So we created a Deepnote notebook that checked all the resolutions and like generated checksums for that. And then we generated a file that kind of overrides this implicit mechanism for reliability. So it was not reliable anymore. But we didn't have problems with this. So it was mostly about the CI speed. So we went with this part. By the way, if you happen to have the same problem, we can share the Deepnote notebook with you. It's a Python code that finds the resolutions and the targets. And so back then, ecosystem was so not ready, and our monorepo was also so not ready because we had like Webpack for front end, we had like TypeScript builds for the backend, then we had Babel in Webpack, then we had Jest that uses Babel, to do your stuff and run by itself, so you don't have to build before running tests. And yeah, as I said, so this became too weak, and it was 500 Veterniks. So by the way, this is money currency that we use for defining whether something is worth it or not. Okay, so our story ends with some recommendations. Migrate only if you need it. If you have old Yarn 1 repository that maybe doesn't need some extra love, don't do this, especially if it's big. If it's small, it's probably gonna be okay. Time box it, say I'm gonna spend 1 day on this, and if it's like total nightmare, I won't be going forward. By the way, we did this as well, but then it became 2 weeks anyway. Log all your stuff. So write what you hacked. If you hack a library, so something above it works, write it down, because then maybe the next person trying this in their own time box will be a little bit further than you in the first place. Refactor monorepo, which we did a little bit later. So now we use Webpack everywhere, and we use TypeScript not directly, TypeScript compiler, but through Webpack, which in my opinion is a good thing to do, but Webpack is complicated, so some people might not like it. But as well, today the support is much better, and now we also have Yarn 3, which is even better in terms of migration. So they created this node modules linker migrator something, and you can use that to migrate a little bit easier, but I don't know. And also if you use ESBuild, which is awesome thing. Does anyone use ESBuild here? One hand? I don't believe you. But yeah, for a small project, me too. But so ESBuild is this thing that, so Figma CTO was so pissed that their developers are waiting for all the compilation, and it was taking such a long time in Webpack. So he just sat down and built a new JavaScript compiler, which is like 100 times faster than Webpack and Babel and everything. It's quite cool guy. Yeah. So, and there is this faster script execution. So when you do Yarn run something, it actually is a little bit faster. So, and also we migrated to Yarn 3, but not really, because there is this patch package problem. So we patched the patch package mechanism because we wanted to patch not a library, but we wanted to patch this thing in the root of our repository that is silencing all the warnings from the reliability thing. And this is not possible to patch in Yarn 3. So almost done. And demo time, I don't know how much time I have, maybe not a lot, but so I wanted to show you how installing in all of these things look like, but it's not really a lot of information. I just do Yarn here in Deepnote repo. Bam, it's done. So it's even faster when it's already everything linked. And this is like this school project where we test people if they know bash scripts. 400 milliseconds, but still a lot of mess. And this is like a new, fresh React thing. And then this is our code. which is Yarn 1, but it's cached. So this is already post-install. This is CSS build. So it's quite fast, but it's cached. So I just wanted to have some demo with code. And now, yeah, good, almost. So immutable.js was taking some time. Demo checked. I also wanted to say, since I'm talking about our code, that today we announced that Seros bought our code. So for whoever knows about our code story, is this like Prague local small startup, and when you visited us, you had some nice beer and stuff, and so yeah, a successful exit. So yay, and thank you. We have some Slido. So, oh, there are questions. Good question. Are you saying that Yarn 2 Plus is going to download the whole internet node modules and shove it into memory? So, you download all those things anyway during Yarn install, but it goes into memory only when you run things, right? So there are like the two parts where this is faster. One is the install time, which is, basically only downloading the zip files, not the actual files that you need to you read and like write and then write into this directory and then nest and so on, which is quite nice. But if it's 500 IO file system operations in like a couple of seconds, it bubbles up. But it shoves it into memory. That's the second part when you load stuff, and it loads only the zip files in the compressed file system. So actually it's loading a little bit less things in the memory. So I'm not saying that. Did I answer the question? Sort of. Do you consider the investment into optimizing the CI pipeline was justified? Okay, great question. So we saved 2 minutes on a 70-minute pipeline. So we saved 2 minutes in the worst case, only out of 3 minutes in the install part. So when we are optimizing the install part, it's quite good. In parallel, we were also optimizing the other stuff. Out of these 17 minutes, like 14 minutes was the Cypress tests. And now we use Cypress dashboard where you can get multiple machines, and at the same time they spin up and they run different parts of your your Cypress tests. So now we have 4 parallel machines doing the Cypress tests, and we lowered that from like 14 minutes to 5 minutes in the same time. And I was doing that. So this is even better, but we never wait for the Cypress test before we deploy a review app. So you can do code reviews even before this, the pipeline is finished, because the review app builds first, but you need that installation there first. So right now we have like 4 minutes till testing review app in your GitHub pull request, which is quite good, so originally we thought it would be 2 days, and that was definitely justified. But looking back, the 2 weeks are also justified, because now we can also talk about it in Productboard Meetup, and it's like free, advertisement. Okay. Either your veteran calculation misses a 0 or your CTO is very underpaid. But we have the large veternik from Mishak. But I may have missed a 0, yeah. And I don't know how much he earns, so. Does Yarn 2 or 3 handle dependency versions? Update all packages to use dependency of a certain version, or would I need to use No, of course, yeah, it does handle it also in Yarn 1, it's also in NPM, so yes, you don't have to use patch package for that. But, there is this resolutions field in Yarn, So if you want to force a different version of loadage in some nested random library and you are sure that it will work, you can use the resolutions field, which is a little bit better. PNPM, have you tried or considered? I wanted to do that, but I had so much work, so I didn't. I didn't try it. I hear that NPM 7 is quite popular and like it solves a lot of problems because it's inspired by what Yarn did. So by the way, NPM didn't have log files, and Yarn brought them. So now there is also package log. It was, I think, since NPM 5. So I didn't. But if there are any learnings, I would be happy to hear those. Troll is asking, how much did you get from Avocode's Ceros acquisition? I don't know if I can say this. Yeah, I can say the Veterniks, but you don't know which ones do I mean. But I will say one thing. So there is this discussion whether you should go to a startup and get a little bit less money compared to a corporate, but get some shares. And there has been some research on this in Silicon Valley, and so the learning is that it's probably not worth it if you spend 5 or 10 years in this company compared to whether being 10 years in like a large enterprise, SAP, whatever, Oracle, IBM, and earning 50% more, I don't know. But this doesn't include all the learnings that you have, all the fun that you have, and all the kind of exploration or all the insights into all of these different parts that you are part of when this company is growing. So I would say this is infinitely more rewarding. So I get a lot of money plus insights and experience. Do you get Veterniks at Deepnote for free? No. But you get this Brex card, and when you are hiring people, you can take them for lunch or Veternik, and you can pay for that. So how many football fields in one Veternik? I don't know, not in one, but so our competitor called Hex, so they raised a Series A of $16 million. They announced it today. They raised it like in April or something. And I think this is like 6 Olympic swimming pools, 18 Olympic swimming pools of Veterniks. So how is Avocode? Sorry, I worked in Avocode and now I work in Deepnote. How about Angular and GCC? Yeah, I don't know. I have never worked with Angular, so sorry if this is a little bit ignorant, but I would be happy to hear. Yeah, this is again, I don't have experience with NPM 7. What I read and hear is that it's great. They did a lot of great stuff, partially inspired by Yarn stuff. And so try it, I guess. Okay, thank you.